Let's see here. You played a game, and I almost played a game.
Okay. You want to
So,
tell me what you almost played real quick before I jump in?
I almost played, what is the name here? The Lost Records game.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's on PlayStation Extra, isn't it?
Yes, Bloom and Rage. I found that out today. That's on PlayStation Extra. So
Yeah.
let's download it. It's ready for me to play after this podcast.
Cool.
But that means we can't talk about it this week. But
Yeah.
you did set up something last week that we were going to talk about right now, which is
Yes.
Avowed.
So Avowed. Real quick disclaimer. I know I just talked a whole lot of shit on Microsoft. However, this happens to be an Xbox Game Studios published title. It is available day one on Game Pass. This is the story of this podcast. It's like we have to hold guys accountable, but at the same time, that doesn't mean we can't, talk about a thing they made and if it's good or not. And I'm happy to tell everybody, Avowed is good.
Oh,
Avowed
I
is
thought it was going to go the
really
other way
good.
when you said that.
No, no, that's the thing. That's why I'm feeling a little mixed about this.
Mhm.
Um, Avowed is a very, very good game. I'm playing a lot of it. I was playing it mere hours before we started recording this podcast. I am way into this, and I can't imagine getting out until I finish it. That's like where I'm at with Avowed. As we talked about last week, Avowed is from Obsidian. Like we talked about, they did the Outer Worlds, and then prior to that, Fallout New Vegas, Pentiment. They're known for story-heavy games with very intricately designed worlds. And this is definitely one of them. In practice, Avowed is kind of like if you put Skyrim in shrink wrap, where like everything about Skyrim was just tightened up. A lot of the unnecessary friction was sanded away. And what you're left is a smaller adventure, but a smaller adventure that feels just as big and wondrous as something like Skyrim can. So it's a first person RPG, just like Skyrim. But again, smaller open world. So there's less overall to do, both story quests and side quests. But there still is an open world, and there still is a lot of exploration, a lot of resource gathering, a lot of quests to take on, a lot of different weapons to try out, and a lot of different kinds of approaches to gameplay and exploration. It is the kind of game that rewards you experimenting with the systems and evolving as you're leveling up your character in the way that you approach the game. The story is actually really cool so far, and I'm not that much into RPG stories typically, like Skyrim. You couldn't tell me if you asked me about anything about the Skyrim story, I don't know what I would tell you. But this, I have pretty much a grasp on what's going on. You're like a godlike envoy who is basically exploring and helping people with these like doing things that only you can really handle. At one point, you die, minor spoiler for the first like 30 minutes of the game. Um, and you come back to life because someone's out there in some sort of other universe needs you to stay alive. And so you're part of the mystery of the games. You're trying to figure out that. We're also while also trying to figure out how to get rid of this scourge, this like weird like environmental poison that is crapping up some of the environment in the world that you're in. But yeah, the characters are really well voiced and characterized. The writing is really good so far. The dialogue trees are really well done. There's a lot of like very minor things that you think are just like, oh, well, I'm going to play around in this conversation and try to move this person this way by saying something that's only tangentially related to the story at hand. And it follows you down that path. It's pretty good about interpreting the kind of character you want to play. Obsidian is very, very good at this. Also, if you're lost during a conversation, you're like, I don't remember what these words mean. They put in a system that's kind of like a live encyclopedia of terms that you can just press one button and it tells you, here's what this means. Here's where this was. This is what they're talking about. I guess this is a system that they introduced in Pentiment that they're refining here. And it's really cool and it works really well, especially for somebody like me who gets lost in that minutia sometimes.
It sounds like
And
something that
then
was introduced in Final Fantasy 16 recently.
similar, it's similar to that system in some ways. Um, but the good news here is that the weakest part of those Bethesda games, Obsidian has taken that and made it one of its biggest assets, the combat. Like before, it's kind of was like, especially in Skyrim, somewhat in Fallout, it felt like that shooting and or hitting people with swords was just kind of like a way to experience the world, and it never really felt great, at least especially to me, especially the melee combat in those games never especially connected. Avowed makes the combat fun. So that means moment to moment you are having fun, just as much fun as you are exploring the story in the world. And that is, I think, the thing that's keeping me invested. The hand-to-hand stuff is actually good. It feels good in your hand. Like when you hit an enemy with a sword, it feels like you're connecting, which is something that Skyrim never really felt like. I'm a ranger because, of course, I am. So I'm using a lot of bow and arrow. And that's also feels good. It has a cool weakness thing where if you're zooming in, it shows a little diamond over the weak spot. So you know specifically where to aim. And it is a lifesaver. And it brings over I know I'm mentioning Skyrim a lot, but it is the easiest comparison to make. It brings over the slow down time during your shooting the arrow thing from that game as well. And it uses it really well here. And there's a variety of weapons too. It's not just swords and bows. You also have like two-handed weapons. You also have magic spells. From the jump, basically, you get the full like ice, fire, electricity, like spell stuff. It's like it doesn't make you wait like a lot of RPGs do to get those kind of powers. It's just like, no, here you go. If you need to burn something up, we'll give you a thing right away to burn something up if you need to. Um, and yeah, like there's so much that I haven't even gotten into yet. Like there's a system um for your companions, just like those other games. And the companions are fun. You can like set up camp and kind of get their take on whatever major story event just happened. There's of course weapon upgrading. There's all the things you'd expect in a much bigger version of this game that's here in the smaller package as well. And it just looks beautiful. It is so colorful. There's colors popping everywhere. It plays really well on my 4090. Let me tell you, I'm running at 120 frames and it's just smooth and it just looks amazing. And yeah, it's a cool game. And I'm hoping people don't kind of get maybe like scared or intimidated by it because it's not as big as you think. It's just big enough to keep you occupied for a few weeks, and it's going to be a fun few weeks.
See, you keep saying that that's not as big as Skyrim. Where Skyrim you can sink 100
Yeah.
hours into.
Yeah.
How much have you sunk into Avowed, and how much more do you think you have?
So far, I've spent probably between 10 and 12 hours. And I am basically only have explored maybe a fourth of the map, and that's being generous, probably. I'm probably not even a full fourth of the map yet.
Okay.
So I'm estimating this about one half of Skyrim. So like this is probably not going to be maybe 50 hours, but probably fewer. And of course, that depends on how many of the side quests you're doing. But if you mainline the story, which I do not recommend, by the way, there is not necessarily explicit level gating here, but there is a system that they let you know pretty quickly which quests are going to be hard with your current outfit, like your weapons and your armor. And you will have to keep that in mind. I had to do that today. I had to keep in like the next available quests were like three skulls, which indicates I needed a better weapon set. And so I had to go figure that out before I could go tackle them. So it's not really level gating, but it's kind of light level gating where it's like it tries to pace you and make sure you're doing a lot of the side content to get up to the power level that they expect you to be for the main content. So as much as you're going to want to like power through if you're that kind of gamer, maybe don't. But yeah.
All right. Um, Characters. Are there different classes? You're just the same character? This like envoy?
So it's a lighter version of what's in those big what's something like Skyrim. You basically are not really choosing a race, you're just choosing a class and you're choosing like a background for story purposes. Otherwise, the character creator is pretty flexible. You can kind of make them look what you want them to look. But it's not like there's like a whole like wide range of like species kinds of things you're choosing from. It's smaller set of options than something like Skyrim.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was excited when this game was announced. I'm glad you are having a lot of fun with it. I
Yeah.
may try and find my way to play it.
I
At
mean, if
least,
you have a spare $60, it's a fun game. And if you think that it's something that you could dig, like you have time to dig into, I would recommend it. Is there a PS5 version of this? I think there might be.
and I'm not sure. I know where I can get an Xbox though. I am pretty much at the end of Infinity Nikki though until the next update comes,
uh,
which is why I downloaded the other game that I mentioned. But if you're having a lot of fun with this, and it sounds like you are, I may have to get myself a handle on this.
yeah, check it out. I would look at some gameplay of it, see if that's kind of if you jive with
Okay.
the things it does in combat and story and stuff.
Right. Now you also played Elden Ring, right?
Like maybe an hour. I'm not
Okay,
really an
so
expert on having played that game.
all right, but you were more into this than you were into Elden Ring.
Absolutely not a like yeah, very very different play experience. I'm really enjoying this. Elden Ring, I didn't know where the hell I was going, and every combat encounter seemed impossible. This is not that.
All right. Um, so like coming from like a zero gameplay experience, you could have more fun with it then.
Yeah, yeah, seems like it.
All right. Well, that's Avowed.
Yep.
Like I said, I'm gonna try and take a look at it, but early top five. I mean,
Maybe,
we're
yeah.
only
I
in
mean,
February.
February wise, yes. Like I can say, probably my favorite game of the year so far. 2 months in,
All right. Well, let's cut the favorite game of the year so far.
so far.